Hi, this is day 2, quick recap of what we did day 1 on law of cosines and sines. This is what the quiz will look like. I asked specifically for one part of the triangle, not for you necessarily to solve the whole triangle. So this quiz, or this question asks you to find RT. I'm just going to call it X. Because these match up across from each other, I'm going to use law of sines. Sine of 33 over x equals sine of 29 over 41. And I'm going to pull out my calculator. I'm going to make sure I'm in degree mode. I am. So then I'm going to type 41 times the sine of 33. Make sure I close the parentheses. Divide by the sine of 29. I can close that parenthesis on the end or not. It knows there's always a 1 at the end. So I get x equals 46. So RT is 46 units long. Moving on to number 2 over here. I'm asked to find angle B. That happens to be the largest angle, but they could have asked me to find any of these. So make sure you find the correct angle on a question like this on the quiz. But the law of cosines for angle B would say b squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2ac cosine of b. So I'd have 10 squared equals 5 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 5 times 7 times cosine of b. I like to subtract these over to the other side. So I have 10 squared minus 5 squared minus 7 squared. And that is still equal to all of this times the cosine. So if I have all of this, it needs to be divided over to the other side. And that'll give me the cosine of b. And then I'm going to have to do inverse cosine. So I'm going to do it in 2 steps. 10 squared minus 5 squared minus 7 squared gives me the top. It's 26. And the bottom is negative 70. So then I'm going to do inverse cosine of 26 divided by negative 70. So I get a nice exact answer. And I get an 111.8, which makes sense for this picture. It has to be the biggest one in the angle in the triangle because it's across from longest side. It doesn't necessarily have to be obtuse, but it makes sense that it could be. Moving on to number 3, it wants me to find EF. If I put an X here, I don't have anything to line up across from each other to use law of sines. So that means I need to use law of cosines. If I wrote it in terms of D, I'd have d squared equals e squared plus f squared minus 2ef cosine of d. So I'm going to write x squared equals 40 squared plus 49 squared minus 2 times 40 times 49 times cosine of 53 degrees. That says cosine of 53 in there. All right, type that in my calculator. Okay, I hope I typed that right. I got x squared equals 1641 point, etc. And then I need to square root that answer. And I get x equals 40.5. I hope I haven't typed any of these wrong, but it seems reasonable for this picture, so I'm going to go with it. All right, question number 4 is an application. It says lamp tilts 2 degrees from vertical. So that means this whole angle is 92 degrees. And they want us to find the length of the lamp post here. Okay. If we have a 92 and a 45, we need to find this angle up top. 180 minus 92 and 45. Leaves me with a 43-degree angle up there. And that angle is across from this side down here that's 25. So I can use the law of sines. And this 45 is across from our x. So if I type 25 times the sine of 45, close parenthesis, divided by the sine of 43, I get x is 25.9. Feet is the height of the lamppost, or the length of the lamppost, since it's not a straight up and down height. All right. We started talking about areas. I'm going to do one more practice real quick, in case I didn't get to this in your class. The semi-perimeter, if you have sides of 8, 12, and 13, you add those up and you get 33. So the semi-perimeter is half of that, or 16.5. And then you would type 16.5 times 16.5 minus 12 times 16.5 minus 8 times 16.5 minus 13. And then you'd square root all that. Okay, I'll show you how to do it so that you can store it if you want. 8 plus 12 plus 13 divided by 2. And then I'm going to say store, which is down here above the on. And then I'm going to hit the X key, which is right next to the green alpha, and enter. Now it's stored. And then I'm going to go square root of x, parenthesis, x minus 12, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, x minus 8, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, x minus 13. And I did put the square root in already, so I get 47 centimeters squared is the area. Okay, so that's Kieran's formula when you're given 3 sides. The other option is given 2 sides and an angle in between to find the area. And hopefully I got through this with your class. If I didn't, you can take a snap quick of that and look through it and see if you can follow that. But for an example today, I'm actually going to do this question. I'm going to go kind of quickly here. It says this is yellow and we're to find the area of that, but we know nothing about that. What we do know is that it's symmetrical. So the other piece that's the same size and shape as this is the blue piece over here. So we know this is a 45-degree angle and this is a 100-degree angle. Okay. And it also says the quilts are 8 feet by 8 feet. So this is an 8 foot by 8 foot square. And if it's symmetrical, oh, the other thing we know, I was going to say it divided this in half, but I don't think it does. What we know is this 6.5. I'm sorry. So this is 6.5. So in order to find the area, I'm thinking I need to do law of sines to find another side. So I'm going to set up the sine of 45 is across from 6.5 in the same way that the sine of 1. Actually, I'm going to do this. If you do 180 minus 45 and 100, that leaves 35. So this angle up here is 35. So I'm going to do the sine of 35 is across from x. So if I can find this side right here, then I can use this formula, 1/2 AB sine of c. So I will have 0.5 times 6.5 times whatever that side x is, times a sine of 100 degrees. All right, so real quick, 6.5 times the sine of 35 divided by the sine of 45. Okay, I got 5.27 for this side. That's a 5. So now if I use these two sides and the angle in between, I will have 0.5 times 6.5 times that last answer. I'll just type it in as 5.27, or you could use answer, times the sine of 100. I'm getting 16.9 roughly square feet. For the yellow piece. That's all it asked for, was the yellow piece. All right, takes 3 coats of paint to make a barn quilt. It takes 3.5 ounces to cover a square foot. How much paint will be needed for the yellow triangle? So 3 coats of 16.9 square feet is about 50.6 square feet for our 3 coats. And we know that it takes 3.5 ounces of paint to cover 1 square foot. So I'm just doing a proportion. So I just need to multiply this by 3.5. And I get 177.1, or I guess I would buy 178 ounces of paint, which would probably sell by gallons, but I'm just going to go with it for this question. All right, moving on. Hope you got that one done. This one says, we have a picture here. How high is the blimp? Right down the middle. This one always stumps students because they want to think that it splits this 250 and 250, and it does not. Okay, can't do that. So what you have to do is treat this as a giant triangle. So I'm going to find this whole angle, 180 minus 63 and 72. I'll use my little calculator here. And I get 45. This one is like a lot of the problems on the application packet. So now I need to find one of these sides, either X or Y, using law of sines. So if I say 45 is across from 500, in the same way, I guess I'll do X. Sine of 72 is across from X. Okay, I'm going to cross multiply 500 times the sine of 72 divided by the sine of 45. Make sure I close my parentheses, and I get 672.5. Right here on this side. Now I can find this height down the middle. It's not really down the middle is the problem, but I can find it as a right triangle. I know this is 63 degrees, this is the height, and this is 672.5. Now, you could use law of sines again. I'm going to do SOHCAHTOA because I know the sine of 63 degrees equals opposite over hypotenuse. It'll turn out the same, I promise. So if I take that number times the sine of 63, I get 599.2 roughly feet is the height. So the height is almost 600 feet for the blimp. Okay, but you did have to do a kind of a two-step process. You had to find one of the other things first. All right. Number 12 says they have a parcel of land. It's 75, forms a 38 one property is 35 in length, forms a 38 degrees with another side which has not yet been measured. The remaining side is 95. Find the length of fence needed to go all the way around. Okay, so I'm thinking that I need to find this angle first. So I can find this angle to find that side. That's kind of complicated. Sine of 38 is across from 95 is the sine of, I'll call this x, is across from 75. So 95, whoops, nope, 75 times the sine of 38 divided by 95 is 0.486. Which is about 29 degrees, or 180 minus 29, which would be 151 degrees. Because anytime you do second sine, you should look for two possibilities. But if I already have a 38, if I added that to one, I'd have more than 180, so this one isn't going to work. So I know this is 29 degrees in this corner. Okay. So now if I do 180 minus 29 and 38, left up here is 113. Now, I could do law of sines or law of cosines to find the last side down here. I think I'll do sines real quick. I'll call that side y. So 95 times the sine of 113, close parenthesis, divided by the sine of 38. I got 142. So it asks for how much fence we need all the way around. So if I add 142 plus 75 and 95, I get the perimeter, or the amount of fence, is 312 feet. I think there's a question on the worksheet that says you have to add 5% for waste. So if you multiply by 1.05, it doesn't ask that here, but you'd by about 328 feet in case you had some waste as you cut the pieces of the fence, okay? But that's on the quiz, or on the, I'm sorry, the practice that asks a question like that. All right, so this is what you need to be working on today. Well, I'm gone. Be ready tomorrow to go over questions on the review for quiz packet and any of this that's due on the homework check. This is what's due on the homework check tomorrow. Have a good day, guys.